Hello, everybody, and welcome back for the Opus 14 Lightning, Opus 14 Ice review. Today we are going to start off talking about the backups, and we have a lot to talk about actually. If you watch the Lightning review, we argued that Lightning had only one legendary because technically there was three ice ones, but I didn't bring the Al Cid with us on this one anyway. There's definitely some. I think ice got a lot of really good cards this set, and I think they're gonna have one of the biggest impacts in the meta. I think so. Without further ado, let's get into it. Now we have Lugay, Kefka, and Mughal. Backup: when a forward enters the field, you may remove him from the game. If you do so, that forward gains 2,000 power and brave. This effect does not end at the end of the turn. So it's quite an interesting effect that you can choose to resolve whenever you want on whichever forward you want, and it's a permanent effect. So Ice has some trouble with lower powered forwards that do a lot of things like discard, freeze, dull, and freeze. They kind of have those effects to keep them safe. But this is going to be an interesting backup that is both useful in the sense that it's going to keep one of them stronger and upright, but it's going to help Ice make space in their back row for them. I definitely think this is going to see play, at least like a one of for most decks. It's a 2-cost backup that breaks itself and does stuff. I don't know. There's nothing wrong with this card at all. Next is Kefka. Backup mage, EX Burst. When Kefka enters the field, choose a forward your opponent controls, dull it. Great. And then you can tap him to choose a forward, dull it, and freeze it. You can only use this ability if you control 5 or more ice backups. It's just great, right? It's just a free dull and freeze as long as you've reached ice backups. It's obviously only in a mono ice deck, but I think that's going to be very simple when we're getting stuff like Lugay here, and then even this Mughal one for for the primal decks. And like I've been mentioning over and over in the previous reviews that this is going to be the one where monocolor decks are coming back, mainly because of effects like this and the primals that require you to have all of the same color. And then it just makes more sense, right? It's just that much more beneficial. Now, not to say that there won't be cards like, because I think the Ice Mughal produces wind. There's not to say you couldn't have all ice backups and producing other elements, so you can play certain forwards, but it's still going to be like mostly ice. Now, Mughal 14, which I think is super strange that he is not a Mughal job, but I think that's where we're going to fill in that you can have multiples of him. I guess that's the trade-off there. But when an ice job primal enters the field, activate Mughal just like the rest of them, and then you can, for an ice and tap, you can choose a forward, dull it. You can only use this ability if you control an ice primal. So probably one of the better effects as well. For an ice and tap to dull, most things will have to break, or it's like that one monster that we had a long time ago, a ghost, I think it was. So it's definitely going to be very useful in the primal deck, and being that you can play multiples of it, it's just going to be better, right? You're going to have a little more chances to dull between Kefka, this, and some of the newer cards. So next we are going into Ysael, Sarah, and Kuja. 3-drop, 7k, Lady Iceheart. You can tap and put Ysael into the break zone, play an ice forward of cost 5 or less from your hand onto the field. Now, doing a little research on that, there has not been, with the exception of Lock, you should be able to play every ice forward that's come out in the last 3 sets, and maybe there's a snow in there, and that's just about it. Ice has a lot of forwards that you can pretty much play off of this. Big things we're talking, right? Like, there's Orphans, there's Brandelis, Necrons. You can even go for stuff like the Crystal Exar, Eshnataro. Obviously, this was created in you have Physalis as well, but it was mainly created for you to play in the Shiva and maybe the Mog that we'll talk about in just a little bit. But still, like, the options are insane. Like, you're going to be trading a 3-drop for a 5-drop and making a lot of plays. So not only is she, she's a body at first, but she's gonna be another setup, like another pre-setup turn, right? Like before, we used to play, pitch two forwards and set the Vow in the back row, and then that would be like your all right next. At any point from here on, the next play is gonna be I'm gonna reborn something and bring something out, right? Now, Yuseo is gonna bring that same kind of setup for ice that it had before, but with a forward now, and a lot bigger options, right? Because it will come from your hand, but it'll be a 5-drop and all the 5 drops, anything 5 or less really that's come out has been pretty insane. And that doesn't exclude like multicolor cards, just so you know, right? Like, so very good card. Sarah, when Sarah is put from the field into the break zone, your opponent discards 1 card from their hand, freeze all forwards your opponent controls. 2 solid effects. I think she's a little, like, I don't know why, I just feel like she's underwhelming, but freezing all forwards and discard a card is still good. She might see play. There's a lot of Sarahs out there anyway. Kuja. When Kuja is chosen by your opponent's summons or abilities, choose a 1 forward your opponent controls, dull it. I think this is similar to the other Kuja we had a long time ago. I think if I search it, we can compare. When he enters the field, no, actually not. But there's other effects like this that Ice has had, that when they're targeted, they can dull and freeze something. It might not be Kuja that I'm thinking of. But there is, it's not a bad effect, and then it's just another target for your cell as well. Pretty much any forward that's 5 or less is going to be a target for your cell now coming forward. If it's that great, we're going to be playing both ways. The card and Yuseo and some other ways to bring it in. Next is Protofalci Adam, Valfador, and Chivalry. Chivalry? If your opponent has two cards or less in their hand, Adam gains 2,000 power and first strike. When Adam enters the field, place 2 manipulated counters on Adam. When Adam is chosen by summons or abilities, remove 1 counter from him. If you do so, cancel its effect. So he's a 3-drop, 7k. Potential to be 9 first strike, but also has like auto protection for himself. So it's a pretty decent card, honestly. And Valfador, if you control 3 or more ice backups, Valfador becomes a 4 with 7k, and Valfador is put from the field in the break zone. Your opponent discards a card from their hand. These monsters are getting much better, like with things like this, right? It's a 2-drop body, 7k, and discarding a card. It's not enough for you to want to, obviously there can't be multiples of him, but he's still a really solid card. He is a hero. It's there in the rarity, so definitely going to see play. And we talked about Chivalry before, but I still think this effect is ridiculously nuts with the amount of board clears we have. And again, I could be mistaken, but I'm pretty sure if you summon like a Philia, target him with Philia, if Philia breaks 5 forwards, your opponent is discarding 5. If assuming they're all your opponent's forwards, right? You're discarding 1 card for every one of those forwards. So this card is going to be absolutely nuts. I'm definitely going to be playing 3. Sephiroth, Zeromus, the Emperor. Now Sephiroth enters the field, select one of the 2 following. Choose an active forward, deal it 5k. Choose a dull forward, freeze it. That forward controller discards a card from their hand. It's really good. The second effect is better than the first, but still Sephiroth, still 7. Good for a lot of things. Zeromus, we talked about also. Zeromus is card name Zemus in all situations. When Zeromus enters the field or attacks, choose a character, freeze it. At the end of each of your opponent's turns, dull all the forwards your opponent controls. And at 3 damage, Zeromus gains haste. Now, the biggest thing is going to be like, at the end of each of your opponent's turns, dull all forwards your opponent controls. Meaning your opponent will never have a forward unless they have something with back attack or a way to activate them. Or something like Matt, right? If you're playing against monks, you cannot dull my forwards, my monks. But yeah, he's just gonna mean next turn I'm gonna hit you for something. You're gonna discard probably, or I'm just gonna deal you some kind of point of damage. And bringing him into like there is a world where you're bringing this guy in like at the end of your opponent's turn, like before he, like after he attacks, and kind of like how we used to do. I don't want to say Tama, but Tama's probably just the first one that's coming to my mind. I'm sure there's going to be other ways for us to like cheat this guy in on my opponent's turn, because well, you know, once you're in end phase, you can't respond to this, right? So they would have to answer it after they've done everything, and yeah, he's just going to mean, all right, next turn I'm going to dull your forwards, and then I'm going to do my things, right? So very strong card. And the Emperor, this was our exclusive that we got a little while back that we streamed. If you want to follow the Twitch so you check up to date with stuff like that, like if I do decide to go live for other spoilers in the future, or just you want to hang out and play Smash and other stuff later, make sure to check in the description below for all of my links. But when the Emperor enters the field, due to an ability, reveal the top card of your deck. If it is a character, add that card to your hand. You can remove 15 ice cards from your break zone from play and play Emperor onto the field. You can only use this ability during your main phase and if the Emperor is in the break zone. Both of his effects are really solid. There's a lot of ways to exploit this and manipulate this for you to get just cards back, like reveal the top deck card of your deck. And then he's also going to be fodder for the other Emperor L that we had last set, I think it was, or one of the last two sets. But still, there's like so many Emperors out there that I think, you know, at some point this Emperor and that Dark Emperor that brings out another one, and then the one that like you can banish one to make your opponent discard a card, they're all going to be useful at some point. Like I don't think it's going to be, you know, in title that's definitely very dangerous, but for right now he's just super strong. He will probably see some play. I think if you find a deck that can exploit him a few times a turn, you're gonna want to do it. And lastly, we have Gilgamesh, Good King Moogle, Good King Moggle, Mog, the 12th, and Shiva, Lady of the Frost. We already talked about Gilgamesh a little bit. If you have 3 or more different elements in your break zone, he gains 1,000 power, haste, and first strike. And if you have 7 or more, also gains brave and can attack 3 times. When Gilgamesh attacks, choose a character. If you have 5 or more different elements in your break zone, dull it and freeze it. So a handful of effects, definitely very strong. Unfortunately, very weak to, you know, Mist Dragon, very strong card, and Amaterasu pretty much. But if you're able to get it off, then, you know, being able to swing 3 times is always going to be nice. I think Ravana's going to outshine this, just in my opinion, but Gilgamesh could squeak its way into like a really high multicolored deck where you're just throwing different colors around all day. So he's not a bad card, just the deck's going to have to be very, very fitted for him, I think. Now, is it worth it to build a deck around him? Yes, maybe no. He does have really good effects, but it really depends the way the meta shifts with all these primals. And now we have the Moogle Good King. When he enters the field, when he is put from the field into the break zone, you may discard 2 cards. If you do so, return him to your hand. At the end of each of your turns, reveal the top 3 cards of your deck. Play up to 1 card, Moogle 14, or Job Moogle of cost 3 or less among them onto the field, and return the other cards to the bottom of your deck. Now, Job Moogle is fantastic for us. You have, you know, Mog 12, some of the other ones. You have Artemisian, Mog 9. There is the Moogle Brothers, I think would be Moogle Brothers and Herdy are probably your best bets here. And then the ones that generate other CP colors. We also have Nono. And yeah, and lately, and the newest ones, it's Stiltskin and Mog FFBE. I'm not sure which colors the deck is going to go into, but if you're able to generate backups at the end of each of your turns, that's gonna be pretty free. You can drop this guy turn 1, if you're really lucky, you're gonna be able to play in another, like a backup. Like I said, Moogle Brothers is probably your best bet because I think he also flips stuff, if I remember correctly. Yeah, when he enters the field, reveal the top 5 cards of your deck and add a Job Moogle among them in your hand and return the other cards to the bottom of your deck. So as long as you're playing the 14 one that we talked about earlier and then a couple of other ones, you should definitely hit something. and if not, then the longer he stays, the more value he becomes. He's just a good way for Ice to ramp up. So I like that. Next is Shiva, Lady of the Frost. You cannot play Shiva, Lady of the Frost, or card name Ysayle while already in control of either character. When Shiva, Lady of the Frost enters the field, choose a character your opponent controls, dole it, freeze all, dole it, right? Stop. And then next is freeze all the forwards your opponent controls. Put 3 backups into the break zone, remove Shiva, Lady of the Frost from the game, then play Shiva, Lady of the Frost onto the field. That second effect is going to be tough. It's going to be interesting how this plays out. But I'm not really thrilled on Shiva just yet. Maybe I don't see it. If you guys have an idea how that's going to work, let me know. I'm definitely going to still try to build a deck around it so we can, we're definitely going to try to build all the primal decks. But I'm more interested in the Moogle one. And then there is a world where the Moogle deck plays Gilgamesh, right? Because we have all the colors. So, guys, thank you so much for listening. Let me know which one your favorite was, what we missed. Again, remember, I'm only grabbing the ones that I think are going to make an impact on the meta and the ones that I like personally, and some of the stuff we didn't actually talk about before. So, if I didn't talk about the one, you always leave it in the comments and I can share my thoughts with you, or we can, I'm sure it'll make its way into a deck if it was really that good. So, thanks for listening again, and I will see you guys for the next one.